To get started, everybody could come in and take a seat. I guess I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Gabby Snyder. To answer people's questions, yes, I am Gordon's daughter. There is a relation. I'm a computer science major at Mount Holyoke College. It's a small women's liberal arts college out in western Massachusetts, and I am here today to talk about the iPhone SDK, or as it's now known, the iOS, and my experience over the summer at something that is called Cocoa Camp, which is meant to be an introduction to programming the iOS, held at Apple in Cupertino, and it's a pretty exciting experience. But moving away from that for the time being. So what is the iPhone? I'm sure everybody by now either knows this or has one. This is mine. The iPhone is a small device that is, it's an iPod. It's an iPod and a phone. It runs on iOS, which I will introduce in a sec. It has a camera. It has access. Oh.
You might want to turn that.
Yeah, can I turn that?
Yeah, you can turn your machine.
All right.
There you go.
That would work a little better. It has access to the internet. It's a multi-touch device, and the most interesting thing that I think it has is the App Store. But before we get to that, just for a quick overview, the iOS is the central operating system for pretty much almost anything Apple comes out with nowadays. What it allows you to do is take one program and run it with the same code on an iPhone, an iPad, and an iPod Touch. So it's really innovative in that sense, where you don't have to go switch code or switch languages between all three devices. If you have an iPhone app, yes, it will work on the iPad and any iPod Touches.
I think only like fourth generation above iPod Touch, the last third generation above. So it's still a non-iOS device.
Yes, but they you can actually, yeah, that is true. So going quickly to the App Store, it's this really innovative thing that Apple came up with that pretty much allows you to do anything. You've probably all heard the saying, there's an app for that. There are lots of apps. I just took some of my favorites from my phone. You know, you can get Facebook, you can get Twitter, you can get Pandora, Netflix. I could talk about this for a whole presentation if I really wanted to. But what I think is the interesting appeal to the App Store is that anybody's app can make it big. This is something, I'm a college student. We like money. We don't usually have money. If we can do something to get money, we are very happy. I think what a lot of, I guess, iPhone classes, or if you're looking to teach the, iOS in a class, a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, you can take an app like, I don't know, Angry Birds. How many people here who have iPhones have heard of Angry Birds?
I have an iPhone.
This single app has been #1 in the App Store for longer than I can remember at this point, which is saying something. The latest number I was able to find online in terms of copies sold is 10 million units, and that was as of 2 months ago. And since then, they've come out with the Halloween and the Christmas edition, who are also #1 on the App Store for quite some time. So, for assumption's sake, let's just say over 10 million units sold at 99 cents each. Apple keeps 30%, you get 70. If you do the math, that's $7 million worth of profit. That is a lot of money, and something like that can be used, I think, as an incentive to get students interested in this, you know, as opposed to just saying, well, you can program it. I mean, if someone told me, hey, if you can write this for me, you'll get even just like $700, I'd probably do it. $7 million, that's like winning the lottery. So, if you want to program the iOS, there's some things you do need to keep in mind. This is going to be very brief. You only have one view visible at a time. The screen is small. There's limited access to access to resources. Again, the screen's small, it's about 3.5 inches. You don't have enough space, even though you do have very high resolution now with the Retina screens, which is, I think, is pretty cool. You don't have any sort of keyboard or mouse to interact with, and you have to learn Objective-C. But I think that is one of the main barriers that's stopping a lot of people from picking up iOS programming. I know personally, when I first tried this out, Objective-C looked like another language to me. Like, it didn't even look like programming. But what a lot of people fail to realize is that a lot of this is actually drag and drop. You could have someone who's never even looked at a Mac before in their life. I can guarantee they could write their first iPhone app in a matter of 5 minutes. And I think, and later I will show you just how easy it is and how simple it is to get students excited about this technology. To do a quick overview of how the iOS works, I'm not going to go too much into detail on this. There's the Cocoa Touch layer, which is the kind of the upper level in terms of programming. It takes care of user interaction, event handling, so if someone pokes the screen, it just lets the program know, hey, I poked the screen, or whatever. It takes care of some graphics. It takes care of getting data from the accelerometer, so if the person turns the phone upside down, oh hey, I'm upside down, you should reorient the screen. It also takes care of managing the camera and the photo library. The next layer, the media layer, handles core graphics, which is the main program that draws graphics. Most programmers don't even deal with core graphics unless you're doing a graphic-intensive program. There's what's called the Quartz Core framework, or as it's more commonly referred to, Core Animation. Core Video, dealing with if you want to play a movie in your app, and if you want to play audio, that handles it too. But again, not too many people look at the media layer. If you're doing an intro to iPhone programming, this is probably something you'd look at towards the end. One layer down is Core Services. This takes care of core data, which is like your database that keeps track of any entries that someone would add to their app. Core Foundation, which also is another database system. Core Location, that's if you want to locate, or figure out where you are, that takes care of that. And the address book, I'm not sure why this is included here, but this is where they decided to put it. And finally, there's the Core Operating System layer, which takes care of the Accelerate framework and the external accessory framework and the security of the phone, along with any system files. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure what all these things do other than the brief overview the documentation has. You don't need to get this in depth at all. So what exactly is an SDK? The SDK is what's called a software development kit. It's a free program that anybody who has an Intel Mac can go and download. You just have to register an account with Apple. It takes maybe 10 minutes. And for free, the download includes Xcode and Interface Builder. These are the two main tools that you would use to program your app. Xcode takes care of any of the coding you'd have to do, which depending on the app can be a lot or a little. Interface Builder takes care of actually designing the look and feel of your app. And again, depending on what you're programming, you can do all your work in Interface Builder or virtually none of it. There's also what's called Dash Code and instruments included. Dash Code is if you want to make a web app. I don't know if you've seen how some websites have mobile versions. Those are probably done in Xcode. And then instruments is just used to test your app to make sure it doesn't break. I've never actually opened instruments, so I couldn't really answer any questions about that. But now I just want to take 10-15 minutes to show you guys a quick demo, just to demonstrate how easy it is for someone to just go in and pick this up. If anybody has Xcode installed on their computers, I see a couple Macs in the classroom. Feel free to follow along, but given time restraints and the fact that I want to get a conversation going at the end of this, I might be going a bit quickly, but I'd be happy to answer any questions afterwards if you miss a step or want a copy of the instructions. So I'm going to exit out of Keynote and open up Xcode. It should be right here. While I wait for this to open. All right. Xcode is basically a simple coding program. Sorry, I forgot. A funny story about this demo, it usually never works. It wasn't working this morning, hence my frustrated caps box, why aren't you working? I did figure out why it's not working. But so to start off with Xcode, we want to create a new project. We go here, it'll ask us what kind of project we want to make. As you can see, Apple likes to provide templates for everything. So there's templates for if we wanted to do a navigation-based application, a tab bar-based application, already pre-installed. We're going to be using a window-based application, but I can tell you from experience, if you were to want to make a tab bar application or whatever, if you were to start the project up with that, there wouldn't be much extra code needed. So we're going to make a new window-based application. I'm going to call it a slider and save. And this will open up, make this bigger, this window. This is your main, I guess, view for the whole project. As you can see, it already included a couple of those framework files that I mentioned earlier. Think of them like libraries in Java. There's also .m and .h files. Since Objective-C is C-based, you still have header and main files. Nothing too out of the ordinary. What's really interesting from here, I think, is this zip file, or nib file as they're normally called. Zib/nib file is basically the main view of your application. It opens with Interface Builder, and as you can see, it gave me a couple windows here. This window right here is your application. What you put on this window will show up when you start the app. So for example, let's just say I wanted to do a Hello World project. If you go into the Objects menu right here, they give you all of these views, or more importantly, all of these buttons, sliders. They're all right there. And all you need to do is just drag and drop them in to your window to get them to show up. So literally, if I just add this label here and double click and write Hello World, save. It's very important you save every time you change this, because you think it'll auto-save, but it doesn't, and then it won't work later. That's happened to me many times. And if I go back into Xcode and run the file, as soon as the iPhone simulator pops up, which allows you to run demos of your apps, you'll see right in the middle of the screen, it should say Hello World. It should. It's working. There it goes.
Oh,
there's your first iPhone application.
Need a faster Mac. You were Holyoke time.
Yeah, my computer's in the future right now. So, as you can see, it's very easy to make this simple application. Over the summer, I did a version of this presentation with a bunch of high school students, and they were having a lot of fun as soon as I told them, oh yeah, you drag your label over, and then, you can go into what is called the attributes window, and you can change the font, you can change the color, you can change the size. A lot of students are turned away by the fact that most programming seems like it's just code on a page. You don't have this fun, inviting, interactive view that you can actually experience or play with and change and see the change and interact with it. So it's appealing. Yeah?
You still have to get a Core 2 dual PC audio back to do this. You can't use the old one.
You cannot use the old ones now. That's the one downside to this, that you need a fairly new computer to run this code, and it's somewhat expensive.
You also need the latest version of the operating system.
That too. Yep. Yeah. But so we're happy with our Hello World, but I originally said that I was going to show you sliders, so let's get that set up. I guess I'll just kneel down because this is easier. So.
Gabby, there's chairs.
Oh. There we go. All right. So the basic goal of the slider app is we're going to add this slider to our view, and you're in the way. And we're going to have it tell us what value the person has currently selected. As you can see, these dotted blue lines, these are Apple's guidelines. It basically gives you an idea of what will make the slider, I guess, look right in terms of their standards. And it's very helpful if you want to, align something with, if I can get this front and center, it's not letting me, with the slider. It lets you know, okay, if you put it here, that's probably too close. And it's very helpful when you're just trying to quickly get something that looks nice. So in our attributes window, as you can see, we can change the text. I want this label to be blank, so I'm just going to get rid of that entirely. But this is, so if I were to build and run this now, I forgot to save again, didn't I? Okay. If this runs, you'll see that, I already have this slider working, well, supposedly working, but it doesn't really do anything. So what we need to do is we need to add some sort of controller that lets our program know that we've changed the value of the slider, it's time for us to update. Now, normally what most programs would have you do at this point is you'd go into Xcode, you'd make a new text file and you'd have to put in, okay, I can't even remember the code at this point because it's been a while since I've done it this way. And you'd spend 20 minutes typing out maybe like 20 or 30 lines of code, making sure you typed everything right. If you made a typo, you have to go back and find it. What's cool about Interface Builder is that you only need to write one line of code to get this to work. I'm going to add a new object to this project. This object is the same as any Java object that you'd expect to find. It's a basic object, nothing's in it. We're going to call our object a controller. And then, if you see this arrow here, you click on it, and it takes you to this library view that shows you all the other kinds of objects that we could have included. Somewhere in here, there's something called NSObject, which is the main template that we had before. We want our controller to superclass that, so we have access to all of its features. From there, the Objective-C has two methods and objects in Java. You have what are called outlets and actions. An outlet is anything that our object can talk to and change. So we want to add two of those. We want to add a label, and we want to add a slider. And then, as for an actions, we only want one. We want slider changed, which will be called whenever the value of the slider changes. From here, we have to do what I like to call connect the dots. Because our controller knows that it should have something called a label and something called a slider, but it doesn't know what's the label, what's the slider. We need to tell the computer what that is. So if you control-click and drag over to the slider, you'll see that it wants to identify this as something. So we'll tell it, yes, this is our slider, and this is our label. And finally, if we go over to the slider and we go to what is called the connections window, you'll see that there are all these events already pre-programmed in here. You know, if we wanted to do something when someone first touched the slider, we could do that. What we want is value change. So again, if you click on this dot and drag it over to our controller, it'll see, oh, do you want me to call slider changed whenever that happens? We click that, we save, and now we go to this write class files in the file menu, and this takes care of. Oh wait, you have to click controller first, or else it'll give you a bunch of gibberish. What this will do is this will automatically generate a bulk of the code that we need. So I think that's all set. Now if I go in here, as you can see, it knows that I have something called a controller. It's an object. It has these two, this is wrong, but these two things. One's a label, one's a slider. And I'm expecting to have some sort of method that is called whenever this value is changed. The only issue that I ran into earlier was that these need to be of the right type, and they need to have pointers. Yes?
Is it possible to load this out of your text?
I should be able to. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about this. It's been a while since I've...
Under the X code,
No, that's not working. Sorry about this. Oh. Text. No, it's all right. Top right. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to do this. Because I can go into here and blow it up. Too big. Here we go. There we go. Sorry about that. So all this code was automatically generated. I just had to go in and change this to let it know that this is a label, this is a slider. They have to be pointers. You cannot dynamically allocate memory to any label or slider. And I didn't touch anything else. All right, so if I switch back to Xcode somewhere and open up my main file and do the same thing that I just did. All right, this is our main file. As you can see, there is no text in here, so if I were to run this right now, it wouldn't work. So what I need to do is I need to add a line of code that just updates the text. So it's not going to like this. I believe it's... Yeah, I know. I'll go back and change it. I believe this is right. Basically, this creates a new string. We want it to have a value with 1 decimal point.
You want slider.value?
Yes, thank you. And that it gets that number from the slider. So I'm just going to copy and paste this back into Xcode, wherever you are. Hopefully it likes that. Alright, I forgot something. Hold on. I cheated earlier and... Aha, I forgot the space there. Okay. same thing, only different formatting. So now if I were to drag this, it works. And that was one line of code. So it's a very, very, very approachable way to teach programming, I think. Yes, Objective-C is kind of nasty at times, but it's easy for students, I think, to see instantly what they're doing and that it's working. From my experience, a lot of my friends who are taking programming or are thinking about taking programming get discouraged by the fact that they go to do something and they have to spend over an hour debugging it before they find out whether or not it works. And that's, oh, I forgot. A couple more slides I want to go through and then, all right. And another benefit is the immense amount of documentation out there by Apple. You have the Apple developer website, which you can get into for free. And they have this glorious Bible, I'll refer to it as, called the reference library. And it has documentation and code examples for anything you can think of. If you want to add a slider to your project, but you don't know how to do it, if you go to the reference library, they will have sample code. They will have like 3 huge paragraphs about how everything works, and it's very helpful. I know sometimes Java documentation is a little bit confusing. And finally, you have they have these videos out there that are free to download if you have a developer account. That are actual presentations done by Apple employees at what is called the Developers Conference, where they present and they walk through how to do basic programs. And you can, watch the video, you can pause it, you can follow along. If you have questions, they have, you can look it up in the reference library and, find the same exact code that they're working on in there. And it's very helpful as a student to have such high-quality materials available to you at no cost.
Yeah, I think there's also, Apple put out about 2 weeks ago a series of 6 iBooks that are completely free, that are on what we were doing before and other stuff here. Again, completely free.
Oh, awesome. I had no idea. That's
just a couple of weeks of those.
What's the first one?
That's from iBooks. You have to have the iBooks app on your iPad or your iPhone. Get them into iTunes and then you can bring the hassle to get them onto your computer.
Yeah.
Reading on my iPhone. Reading the code.
But yeah, there's plenty of material out there. Do you have a question?
I was going to say Stanford has an iPhone class which is available through iTunes.
That too. And there are a plethora of websites out there with communities of people who also have materials released. Most problems are just a Google away being solved. All right, so now that takes care of the presentation part of my presentation. I know Mike has a couple questions prepared about Cocoa Camp, and I'll also answer any questions that anybody has within my abilities. There's some things I was told I can't talk about, obviously. But,
well, first let me give you a certificate. Thank you for participating. All right, so Gabby attended Cocoa Camp last summer, so could you tell us a little bit about what Cocoa Camp is?
Okay, it's just introductory programs held by Apple that is a week long, and it's basically introduction to iOS programming. Most of the students there were about 30 of us, had some scarce experience with it in the past, and it was just a way for them to, I guess, generate interest and generate buzz about their software development kit amongst, I guess, my generation, if you will.
And how did you first learn about Cocoa Camp?
I got an email from the recruiting, or the job, I guess, center on campus about it, about a week before the application was due. But I believe, they send out emails to campuses advertising this. I'm not exactly sure how else they would get the word out, but I would tell your students that I believe applications open in February and they're due sometime in March. And if you tell your students to search around the internet a bit, they will, or if you get in touch with Apple directly, I'm sure that they will send you the materials that you need to not only advertise it, but to what they need to apply.
And didn't you have a student in the class and one of the classmates that actually had a very successful app too? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, one of the kids there, he wrote what are called game guides. You know, those video games on like Xbox, like Call of Duty, Halo. Trying to think of another one. I can't. He took these games and using a simple table view, like literally, he just dragged it over and added in large blocks of text. Wrote these game strategy guides that tells people how to play better. So I guess in Call of Duty it had something to do with being able to aim faster, or I don't play these shooting games myself, so I don't really get the details. But he told me that he makes around $1,000 a month on what he claimed was only a matter of 3 or 4 hours of work. So.
We've got a question from online. Is there an age limit to attend Cocoa Camp?
You have to be, sadly, you have to be a college student. I'm pretty sure that I want to say it's like 17 through 21, 22. I'm not really sure about any other restrictions, but I don't think there are that many.
It's like American Idol. Well, tell us what you learned at Cocoa Camp.
All right. I basically learned everything that there is to know about iPhone programming. They started the week off by doing Hello World, obviously, very basic applications, and by the end of the week, we were able to kind of take what we had learned and the resources online and come up with our own applications. I was able to I was going to get it on my iPhone to demo it, but I couldn't find the file. I left it in Massachusetts. A program that allows you to take a picture of something and then add a cartoon mustache onto the person's face and then save it so you could text it to them or you could put it up on Facebook. Completely useless, but it's still really cool to be able to say that you know how to make. So.
Now, what about your classes? You're in the middle of your sophomore year. Has this experience helped you in your classes in computer science? I
think so. More coding experience in general is always, I think, a large help. And it's something really good to put on a resume. To say that Apple invited you out to their campus, obviously, for a week-long training is pretty exciting and pretty nice to have on a resume, if you will. It's a really great opportunity, and it's allowed me to kind of look at things a little differently. I didn't really go too much into this talk, but the iPhone programming is very model view controller based. You know, you have your model which handles the data, you have your view which takes care of the user interaction, and then you have a controller that mediates the two. And just being able to understand that mindset has really helped me look at all my other programs a lot differently. And I think they're organized a lot better because of that.
All right. So after freshman year, spend the week at 2 weeks at Apple. What do you plan to do after your sophomore year?
My sophomore year, I got invited for an internship at Google. So I'll be out there this summer. It's going to be pretty exciting. I don't know much about what I'm going to be doing, but something cool.
Great, yes. And we'll open up to questions. Now, Donna?
I have a question.
Awesome.
Okay, so because I am who I am, I have to ask how many other females were in the group of 30?
Sadly, there were only 4 of us. This was something that I was very troubled about, actually, because they were recruiting at Smith College, which is the other all-women's college in my area. And I had spoken with one of the persons in charge of recruiting for this program, and she said there's this huge emphasis on, you know, getting that balance to be 50-50. I don't know if this was because not as many females applied. I don't know if it's because maybe they weren't qualified enough, but it's still very troubling. And I was very disappointed, actually, by it, as a computer science student at an all-women's college. So.
Well, you know, they only needed to cut it off because they wanted to recruit more female students. But nonetheless, okay, so having said that, I'm curious. So knowing that overall, as a group, females really like to have context with the technology, it would seem like from what you're talking about that this would actually be appealing to female students because they get immediate context. Does that ring true for you?
Yeah.
Did you see that in your NS4, or what's your thinking about that?
I think that, I mean, based off of what I've just shown my friends actually, because I've shown them, you know, oh, hey, look at what I can do. I think it's very appealing because, again, all women's college, you know, I see a lot of my classmates get disappointed when we're working on this huge, you know, like 200-300 lines of code, and you can't actually see what it's doing until you fix all the bugs, and that's like after 10 hours of work. And by that point, a lot of people are really frustrated and just want to quit and leave for the night. Being able to kind of see your interface and start interacting with it from the beginning, I think is very appealing and very helpful, especially for me. I mean, I'm not going to lie, my attention span isn't the greatest some nights. And being able to just say, oh, look, I've done this, you know, I've gotten started is very helpful.
And number 3 is, so interested in partnering, like to make a killer, like some kind of like women technology app and with us?
Sure.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you later.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Let me know when you do that.
You made references to the joys of working in Objective-C. Based on your experience, would you recommend people starting C first and then maybe do something on the Mac before moving to the iPhone, SDK, or what kind of progression would you basically suggest is a good one for students?
I would say that they should be able to conceptually understand objects before moving into Objective-C. When I first started iPhone programming, I had no exposure to Java. I had no idea what an object was, and that really, I think, hindered me learning Objective-C. And when I went back to it after taking a full year's worth of Java at Mount Holyoke and fully understanding, you know, an object is this, it helped a lot. As to learning C first, or C++, perhaps it might make things a little easier. I think the only road bump would be the fact that the formatting is so different. I mean, once you've learned a couple programming languages, you know, you can easily switch between them in your head. But at first, it might be frustrating for students to either have learned something else or learn this and then have to switch. I'm not sure if I could say that they should definitely do this first, or it'd be something I think you'd have to try and see what the broad audience likes better, maybe.
I can say something about that. I teach an iPhone programming class, and I found that Objective-C had some similarities to Java, some to C++, and then some to discrete C.
That's the root for all of them, you know, historically.
So it still uses structures.
So would you say still, like maybe if someone had a semester of C++ and they went off to that camp, they would be well served?
I think they would be very well served. It's designed to be an intro program. You don't have to go there knowing how to, fully understanding pointers and memory allocation in C. You can go there with 1 semester of programming, and as long as you're really comfortable with, and you're confident in your ability, you should be fine.
Whether it's for the iPhone or for just programming in general, to get, I keep hearing this, it has to be more of a social conscience or a storytelling type. We're trying to lead to like a summer camp for girls here. And so, can you tell me specifically, like what you have developed or what? I mean, I need specifics. Obviously, I can't do it.
So specifics in terms of
the programs, or I mean, obviously, when they say a storytelling, what is it, or like socially conscious? You know, can you give me a little bit more specifics? Like what you would develop, or what you see that you like?
In terms of iPhone or in terms of general? Both.
Well, maybe I guess I'd be good. iPhone thing, but I think if you can, that's fine too.
All right. Well, I guess I think when you mean storytelling, like my progression through I'm trying to understand the question. So I'm sorry.
The question is like, what do women or young women like to build or whatever?
Oh, okay.
Or what would be good for you?
In my experience, I would think starting off with something like HTML or web design would be a great introduction to just getting used to being comfortable with a computer. Sadly, from my experience working with both my peers and with younger girls, I guess, is that there's a lot of this like mental attitude that, oh, I can't do this, computers are too hard. Yet what they don't realize is really how simple it is. So if you were to start off with something like HTML to show that yes, you can do this, get used to the idea that there's this line of text that does something and this is what it does, and get that concept in their head. That'd be a good place to start. From there, based off of personal experience, I went straight into C++, which was a huge hurdle. I mean, I haven't played with something like Alice personally, but the Java introduction program where you get the 3D models and they can dance and everything. Something like that would be helpful because, again, it's just taking them a step deeper into the concept that, this line of code does this and it's object-oriented.
Okay, but what's specifically, say like you go to C++.
Okay.
What do you do? I mean,
I would think that you would work on practical applications, something that, or maybe, when I learned context programming, which means we were given a problem and you solved it as fast as you could. I wouldn't recommend that in terms of quality, but in terms of learning how to accomplish something, it's nice to be given a simple task, be able to solve it, because that builds confidence. And that's something I think, especially if you're a woman going into computer science, having that confidence in yourself is very important. Do you have something to add? Or?
Yes, I'm going to add to that. So I'm actually working with a group of people down in South Bay. We're doing an event called Therapy Digital. It's an event for girls in technology. And we teach a number of different development environments. But what I've found the most success with, I've done a number of workshops for girls, is something called the intentional method, which is where you give them a line of code in English and have them convert it over, but you don't say like, here's a string, what can you use a string for? You say, here's some text, how do I do something with it? So rather than starting with the code, you start with the problem, give them the problem, and then show them how to solve that problem. And we actually have a site called teachingkidsprogramming.org. That goes through a set of recipes with videos and how to do everything there. And we've used Alice, we've used Scratch, we've used Kodu. There's a number of different tools that work for that. And depending on the person you're working with, every person's going to be different. But I found a lot of success around the intentional method.
Yeah, and I would add too that in terms of content, and I think that's where you were getting at, what would be the content of an app they would build or a website they would build. I think something that they're passionate about. So for a website, if it's World of Warcraft or gadgets or fashion merchandising, something like that, build a website and have something, some tangible product that you built. It's something you're passionate about. And the same thing for an app. If they build an app that's built on something that they have a passion about, so you let them explore that themselves.
Yeah, it helps, I think, if they can show it off to their friends. Go ahead.
If I can put in something, I used to work at a company called Purple Moon, and we did early web stuff with girls. And you don't run into the thing of throwing them all in the same boat, either the Barbie boat or the not Barbie boat. There's so much variety. Some people will want to make games or apps that shoot things. Some girls will. And some girls will want to dress up their pets in, shoes. That's a big mistake that this market made.
And I want to say that tomorrow afternoon, after lunch, I'm actually giving a workshop on how we've been successful in increasing retention of females. But we also do, I'm with the Institute for Women in Trades, Technology, and Science. And at the end of February, we are doing our 2-day women tech training that people come to from around the country. If you go to iwix.org, we teach the elements of what everybody's giving specific examples of about how to appeal to female interest. And we also have online on iwix.org a proven practices collection.
Did you say ITTS.org?
And there's a proven practices collection of like over 80 articles, and we have sections specifically on girls and also on teens. And so you can look at journal articles about this kind of stuff. So come to a training, you'll get the knowledge base and be able to develop a plan. And in the short term, you can go to our proven practice collection, iwix.org, and come tomorrow afternoon. Sorry. But you know, there is some stuff to help you, and there's a lot of good examples. And I'm like, you wrote this. You know so much, and it's wrong. Yes.
Other questions for Gabby?
Yeah, I think there's 5 minutes left.
I have a question. It's kind of related to that. So were the students there only computer science students? I mean, if it was very easy to use, would it make sense maybe to have students from a different discipline there as well?
I think that, yes, it would be, but at the time there were mostly computer science students. However, there was, I think, 10 people from Carnegie Mellon who were CSE majors. I would think that if, in a course just designed for intro to computing in general, if the final project was to create an app or something, that again, just to be on any topic that the student wanted, that would be a good place to go.
Yeah, because I was thinking if you look at what was said in the keynote today about, you know, IT really isn't isolated all by itself, it's part of every other discipline, then it may make sense to bring in people from other disciplines to show them the use of IT.
Yeah, I think it'd be, one second, I think it'd be a really great idea. Just because, again, being able to build an app, I think, is something that is going to be becoming a lot more prominent, especially now with the Mac App Store. And there's other app stores coming, and the idea of being able to make a small application that gets one thing done, gets done really well, will be valuable in any field.
Kind of talking about other fields like that, how much of the Camp Cocoa was talking a little bit about graphics and designing objects to go into your program, and that's really is different.
Yeah, not much. There was a lot of talk about how to design like a good app in terms of content and making sure it wasn't too bloated or wasn't too like disorganized, but in terms of like actually doing the coding and actually designing the elements, there wasn't too much on that.
Someone has to draw the angry bird there, you know,
yeah.
It could be a good graphic artist.
Yeah. I think it was implied that they were training us to be the code monkeys behind it, and that we'd find someone else who was artistic who could do the doodle.
You don't do it all?
I can draw a Pikachu, but that's not
Okay, other questions for Gabby?
What can you not talk about?
Huh?
What can you not talk about?
If I told you, it wouldn't be a favorable outcome.
Have you signed a non-disclosure?
I think I did actually. I can't really remember, but I signed some huge chunk of paperwork. So.
Now we know that Steve was
Yeah.
When is your girl supposed to non-trainer so you can be?
I've actually moved on to another website. Same concept, only I opened it up to both male and females because the Pokemon atmosphere is very similar to the CS atmosphere, in which case you can have a room full of people and only have about maybe 10 to 15% of them be female. So it's hard to kind of attract that audience and to retain them, like you were saying. But I think CS at this point is going very, very good places in terms of getting more women introduced to it. Or maybe that's just because I'm seeing it from a women's college point of view, and I'm out of time. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or give you email.